You ready, Andrea? All right, we'll get it going. All right. Well, this is Matthew Chang. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we are joined by a very interesting person. And for the first time, I have a guest host. So let me start by introducing the guest host, Jason Engelhardt.
Hello there.
Founder of SiliconBeach.ai in Jacksonville.
Yes.
The most active and creative startup ecosystem in Jacksonville.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And then we're joined by guest today, Britton Ladd. Britton is a former colleague of mine. He's got a lot of accolades. We'll kind of unpack that during the show today. But the way I like to think of Britton is he is one of the best predictors in the country. He's the best predictor that I know. He's able to see things and wrinkles in the future that you just wouldn't imagine a person could pick out. Britton, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Thanks. So I want to start off, Britton, and just let's give the audience a little bit of chops on some of the predictions you've made over the last, let's call it decade and a half. And then I want to spend the second half of the show on 2026 and beyond. What's going to happen in this crazy age of disruption and certainly hype around things like AI and humanoids. So let's jump into it. Would you like to throw out one of your favorite predictions that you've made over the last 15 years?
I'll really say two. Number one, I was the first person to recommend, and you say predictions. I actually always say I recommend things. So I recommended back in 2013 that Amazon should acquire Whole Foods. I knew it was going to happen. Sent it to Amazon, said, hey, you guys should acquire Whole Foods. They said I was an idiot, said they never wanted to hear from me again. But they ended up acquiring Whole Foods on June 16, 2017. And then a few years later, as I was looking at what was possibly going to be happening, August of 2019, I stated that Walmart should partner with Microsoft and the two of them should acquire TikTok. And publicly, there were executives from Microsoft and Walmart saying, Britton Ladd doesn't know what he's talking about. It's a silly idea. It'll never happen. Mm-hmm. On August of 2020, Walmart and Microsoft announced that they're partnering to acquire TikTok. And the executives reached out to me from both of them and say, look, we really need to apologize to you because we thought it was one of the dumbest ideas when you first recommended it. But then we realized it actually was a great idea. But the problem is they waited too long. And then the third one I'll throw out, I really was one of the first people to recommend that Microsoft acquire Activision Blizzard. I knew exactly what was going on with both companies. I thought it was perfect. And it happened. And so it's just something I do. I enjoy research. And when I think I have something, I'll share my opinion. There are times I'm right. There are times I'm wrong. I just simply am more right than I am wrong. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'd say it's a good thing. So, Jason, for you,
yeah,
my favorite. He said he makes recommendations.
Right.
They're really. He's recommending the future.
Right. Nostradamus.
So, exactly. That's Britton Ladd. So one of my favorite ones was Britton wrote an open letter, and this is what he does. He writes these open letters to CEOs, and he puts them on the internet. And Britton, how big is your newsletter? How many followers do you have?
Over 50,000, and then it's shared globally though, so it's in the millions globally that end up reading these things. Thankfully.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So when he throws it out there, it says shockwaves, and if your LinkedIn has never blown up before, it's never blown up like when Britton Ladd tags you. I must be on the good list because he tags me. I don't know, every couple of months. My favorite one was he wrote an open letter to Mary Barra at GM.
Yep.
And it's about their business unit called Cruise, the autonomous drive company.
Okay.
He says, hey, Cruise is in trouble, and I recommend a turnaround strategy. The only way you can fix this is to hire Matt Chang as CEO.
Really?
He did. And my LinkedIn exploded, and 20 or 30 executives from GM are now looking at my profile. Oh, I never got the phone call, but I also said, Britton, you didn't have permission to get me selected as CEO. He goes, that's your problem.
That's awesome.
But we know how that played out, right?
Right.
Because they didn't do anything.
Right.
And now they're gone.
Fascinating.
Right? Flush it down the drain. So that was a kind of a failed experiment on GM's part.
Right.
they got to where this kind of valley of death that all these autonomous drive and electric vehicles companies get to. They have a proof of concept is working, but maybe they could have had a little more agile strategy, and they couldn't get over the hump into commercialization.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now, Britton, in your point of view, who's left in the field? Obviously Waymo's expanding. That seems to be going well for them.
Sure. Waymo, I think, is doing a fabulous job. I certainly am. What I'm really watching is what's Tesla doing with their full self-driving vehicles. How's that coming along? I'm really watching what Uber is doing. I wrote something the other day where I really recommend that Uber partners with Rivian. I think that'd be a fantastic play. The big thing is I really think Uber's making a mistake by not acquiring Pony AI and potentially Lyft, and then having Travis Kalanick actually come back and run that. Those are the things that I think are really interesting that could be going on out there.
So I was under the impression that Amazon has an ownership in Rivian. And that their trucks are actually Rivian trucks.
Yeah, I mean, now, Jeff Bezos is the founder of both. Right?
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos is the founder of Rivian, founder of Amazon.
Okay.
I don't know if they have a equity arrangement, but I know obviously he coordinated them. The Amazon trucks on my street are Rivian.
Yeah,
Amazon
Rivian
trucks now.
Right.
So awesome idea, and I love the reference to getting Kalanick back in the game. Right. That would spice things up.
And then a question for you then, with Jaguar, I think pulling out of or eliminating their relationship with Waymo, who's next?
Waymo just showed up there. I just saw last week their new prototype vehicle. I'm sure, Britton, you saw it too. It's the Hyundai Ioniq.
Oh, it's Ioniq, okay.
And it's a good looking vehicle. But what really impressed me was that Waymo stack that sits on top.
It's gotten smaller.
When it was on the Jaguar, it was huge. It looked like a helmet.
Right.
And they've probably reduced the size by 2/3 now, which means they're pulling out costs. The last model they had that helmet on it, I think, is about $200,000.
Wow.
So that's a very expensive piece of hardware to then have to mount to cars that are going to scale across the country. That to me threatened the business case. Now that they're getting some cost out, they're getting some weight out, they're getting it more streamlined. Probably a more affordable production model vehicle with Hyundai.
Right.
It's the economics are probably looking better for Waymo.
But did I read properly that Uber is looking at building their own cars?
Britton?
Well, so Uber actually has considered that. They actually have had discussions with multiple companies. They don't necessarily want to manufacture their own vehicles. They would like to design. They would like maybe to have a partnership, but they're not going to try and do what Tesla is doing. And one of the reasons why I recommended to Uber about the partnership with Rivian is Rivian already has everything. And Rivian can do passenger vehicles, Rivian can do vans. And as far as the question about Bezos, Amazon does not own Rivian, and Amazon does not have exclusivity to Rivian vans. Rivian has a separate company called Rivian Fleet, and that's where those vans are actually are located. And anyone basically can buy the vans. And you too could go online and buy a Rivian van after this if you want. But the reason why I'm a big fan of the Rivian Uber partnership is that Uber has an opportunity to do what no one else can. Uber not only moves passengers, but they could partner with Rivian on a vehicle that also would have packages on that vehicle. And there would be no incremental cost to Uber for moving packages, because the passenger van, the passengers in the vehicles would actually cover all operating costs, plus provide margin, plus provide the profit factor that they would want. So they could be taking all of the rates that they're charging to anyone moving those packages, and that would all fall to the bottom line for Uber. Basically, that's 100% profit to them. And that to me is what is really the big opportunity. And I think in 2026, that's one of the things we're going to be seeing, is that Uber finally wakes up and says, we're leaving billions of dollars on the table by us not having vehicles that have passenger capability and also be able to have the ability to put packages in it. I'm convinced that's absolutely what we're going to be seeing.
So Jason, when Britton writes these open letters, are you getting a flavor for why the CEOs have steam coming out of their ears?
Yeah.
just fries their brain.
Right. So I've got 20 guys that are in the strategy department, but no one's coming up with this stuff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And then
who's this guy?
Your brain turns into scrambled egg brain.
Right.
When you're like, wait, I got to deliver, parcels and people on the same route.
So Britton, do you think that from an Uber perspective, if they do partner with Rivian, that they're going to be financing or creating a deal for all Uber drivers to be converting from whatever they're driving now, which could be just about anything that's right, into this, which could, I would assume, have a pretty big impact on the auto industry?
Oh, I think I absolutely do believe that. But the way I've recommended it is, and my argument to Uber is, you don't necessarily want to enter into a traditional lease program. I'm not a big fan of that. Mm-hmm. And instead, what I really think that Uber should do is say, we're going to franchise the vehicle and you get an assigned route. So as Britton Ladd, I live in Prosper, Texas, and I could say, I basically have franchised this vehicle from Rivian. Uber provides me with the insurance I need. Uber does provide insurance to Uber drivers anyway. Mm-hmm. And so then what it is I have this territory and it's protected, but it's my franchise. And that way there, I now have thousands and thousands of franchisees as Uber, into the hundreds of thousands possibly at some point. But the reason why I like that then is the turnaround in those vehicles could be 1 year, it could be 2 year, and those could be sold to rental fleets or they could be sold to an individual. So I think it would have a tremendous impact on the auto industry.
Right.
But the thing that I think would be the most interesting is how detrimental it would be to FedEx and UPS and the U.S. Postal Service. Because imagine if Uber only took 25% of the small package volume that's out there today, and it's moved by their vehicles. And Uber absolutely could be partnering with any number of companies that could put in the actual infrastructure of the sortation centers and the warehouses and so forth. And much of that actually already exists in any number of formats. So I think that you're looking at an impact on the auto industry, but you're also looking at an impact on the logistics industry. And then Uber, of course, could be leveraging the fact that they deliver food and groceries as well. And they could be tying that in. It's a big idea, but it's an idea that with as smart as the people are at Uber and as intelligent as the people are at Rivian, I'm confident that they could put something together.
Or if Jason, me, and Britton team up,
right,
we just solve it for them as a service, right?
Right.
All right. So that was a good look into next year.
One.
Let's get baseline in a couple things, because we talked about Tesla, we talked about Uber, Waymo, some of the kind of failed self-driving companies. So you guys know, both of you know this. I drive Cybertruck. I was one of the first adopters. I think I got the third in my city. Mm-hmm. 6 months later, they turned on the FSD, the full self-driving. And at the time, I was very impressed. Yeah, it was a little buggy. You can find some bugs. And I ride Waymo every time I go to a Waymo city. So I like to stay kind of abreast of what the latest is. Mm-hmm. And I for a year and a half, I've been saying Tesla FSD is 0.9 Waymo. So it's 90% as good as Waymo. So for your daily driving, when you're driving, that's pretty good. That means, you can set it. I have a bunch of little kids. I got to turn around and negotiate a peace treaty in the back seat.
Right.
The car is driving, right? And it's very safe. It manages turning and getting on the highways, traffic lights. It manages all that well. Little bugs on, getting in and out of the driveway, the parking lot, little details. Okay. We went to FSD 14.2 2 weeks ago. And I wrote a X post about it, just not for audience, but for a timestamp. Tesla FSD is 1.0 Waymo. It is the same.
Interesting.
And they're doing it without the fancy vision stack. They're doing it just with like little iPhone cameras positioned all the way around the Tesla. You almost don't notice them. They're achieving the same driverless capability as Waymo. But here's where it gets interesting. Waymo is really geo-fenced, right? So in every city, they have a map of where they can drive. Mm-hmm. And then they have no-go zones. They don't go on the highways. So if you're in a city where you could have taken a highway, it'll cost you an extra 20 minutes to take Waymo because it's going to take surface roads. You can't go to the airports. They're not ready to negotiate that kind of crazy traffic in the drop-off line. Tesla FSD absolutely does. And it it leaves your driveway, or it parks in your driveway. It goes to a supercharger if you're going on a long route, and then it pulls into the driveway at the place you're going to. And it does it 100% by itself with no intervention. when you're driving, you have the opportunity to take over.
Right.
Like, let's say you just really need to pass somebody.
Right.
You have that option. But the driverless capability is the same now on both.
So do you see a time when you're going to send your truck to go pick your kids up from school?
Totally.
Really?
Yeah. So what we're on the wait list for, and Britton, you're probably tracking this, is the robotaxi rollout.
Correct.
So all the vehicles that have the capability that mine does is the hardware for.
Right.
All of the vehicles that have that, you can sign up in the Tesla app, which is that's how we use the car, right? That's our key is the Tesla app.
Mhm.
You can sign up in there to join the robotaxi wait list, which means I'm going to do it just to do it, but I'm
Right.
not going to do it for a business. I can send my Cybertruck from my driveway to go do these robotaxi rides just like Uber. And then it'll come back to me with no battery and it'll tell me to plug it in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's already on the wait list.
So let me, I'm not sure if I'm asking you or I'm asking him this is why won't it work, or when will it work like one of those robots that plug itself in?
Britton, are you on the cars charging themselves bandwagon yet?
Well, I've been on that actually for several years. Over the years, there have been multiple companies that have come up with ways. One of them is just a simple plate that you sit in your garage or at a charging station. The car pulls in and it actually is charged from the bottom. It just comes up and actually does a connector in the bottom of your car. It's just a new way to charge. I'm not exactly sure how Tesla plans on doing it, but I'm sure that's absolutely something they have on their roadmap.
I'll tell you, here's the challenge, though. Those superchargers that Tesla has deployed, when I charge the truck, I peak out at about 255 kilowatts.
Right.
Let me translate that, since not everybody in the audience speaks kilowatts. It's 65 households worth of power. So the connected load of your house and my house, that's 2 houses. Britton's house, that's 3. It's 65 houses of instantaneous power that it pulls down. Doesn't do that for long, right? We're only talking 5-10 minutes. It's pulling down at that level. Then it goes down to 40 houses, 30 houses, kind of levels out. But I think one of the challenges is this power level to get the true supercharge.
Right.
That's a big barrier. I'm personally not comfortable with that being somewhere where a human could get in the way. Right. That's why I kind of like the plug for now.
Right.
Is because it's secured in the socket and you can't be in contact with the electricity. So I know what if you look at transit buses, Britton, you've seen this all over the country. They've got these top-down plates. The charger's robotic. It comes out of like basically a light pole,
right? And
then it touches the top of the bus and it hits it with a crazy charge up to 600 kilowatts.
Kind of like the old trains.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But when the bus dwells, say it has an 8-minute stop to recover on time.
Right.
When it dwells, it gets a little 8-minute supercharge, but it's not a level 3 charge, it's level 4. So all right, so let's get into next year, Britton. 2026 is upon us. You've already given us some predictions on how Uber is going to deliver packages and then start doing the sortation, and there's going to be impacts across the supply chain.
Right.
Give us some Britton Lad size predictions for next year.
Well, one of them I had already made 2 years ago came true, and my argument has always been that OpenAI is absolutely going to be the first out of the gate, but that OpenAI was absolutely going to falter. I wrote 2.5 years ago that OpenAI really was the new BlackBerry, because what we were going to see at some point was a Steve Jobs imitation of where Google or Amazon or someone was going to come out. Google is the one who did it, and they unveiled Gemini 3.
Yeah.
And it was almost an exact moment of when Steve Jobs in 2007 unveiled the iPhone and really put to shame BlackBerry and said, this is what BlackBerry does, but this is how we're going to make everything better. And the iPhone just simply embarrassed the BlackBerry and put them out of business. And so now you have Google with Gemini 3. And what Google really did the other day when they released Gemini 3 was to prove they're superior to OpenAI across every level. And I think the thing to watch for 2026, unless OpenAI can really find a way to recover and find a way to leapfrog some of the things that they've been failing to do and be able to put it together, I think OpenAI craters, and I think it's absolutely going to have a ripple effect that's going to open up Uber and Amazon and Google into doing some really fascinating things. And then we have Anthropic. And Anthropic, I believe, is going to launch an IPO in 2026. I honestly thought it was going to be in 2025. But I think Anthropic's going to be going into some really interesting things as well. So I think the big shakeup is going to be in 2026, that the AI playing field is absolutely going to change. But I also think the big realization that people are finally going to wake up to, and I wrote about this 3 years ago, the biggest lie in AI is that it's going to create millions of new jobs and that it's going to launch new industries. There's absolutely no incentive for AI to create any job that requires a human. And so we're going to be going through what I call the buggy whip period, where all of a sudden AI has made most jobs about as valuable as the buggy whip when Henry Ford launched the automobile, and people who made saddles and so forth. And we're going through that. And I think in 2026, we're finally going to start getting an idea. So what is our economy going to be like if, say, 12 to 15% of jobs are actually replaced by AI? So then what happens? What do those people do? And how does the government react? And my argument remains the same. I believe the way the government levels the playing field is that they tax AI agents as if they were people. And that within a system in a company, within their payroll system, they default to salary for each AI agent that they have. And then what would happen is those companies would pay a 6% or 7% income tax or salary tax on that income for the AI agent. Of course, they're not paying the AI agent, but they would still pay that income to the federal government in the form of a tax. And so now magically, we don't have a shortage of workers in the United States. We have millions and millions of new workers because there could possibly be hundreds of millions of AI agents in use over the next several years. And if each one was taxed at $100,000 salary, and you just take 6% and you pay $6,000 for each of your AI agents, you now have replenished the Social Security system. You now have the basics for a universal basic income. But now you also have the ability to take that capital and you basically start opening up all kinds of new interesting manufacturing zones where the federal government builds the factories and they lease that factory space to companies. Instead of saying to companies, you relocate your manufacturing China to the US, the government builds these massive industrial parks and they lease that space to a company. Well, I think those are the things we're going to be seeing.
In Britain, Chang Robotics is going to build those industrial parks. You know, we'll take care of that. I don't know if we can see the American flag behind Jason here. Yeah. We're locked in, right? America, reshoring. But so I'm going to throw it back to you, Jason. Yeah. So I got two things from what Britton said. All right. Number one, he's calling some jobs right now buggy whips and saddles, right? Which is a tough transition for some folks to realize that maybe 100%. AI. Yeah. So that's going to be really challenging.
Yes.
The second is, according to his model, the 12 to 15% job displacement, that creates a lot of extra workforce.
Yes.
One of the things I'm screaming for in manufacturing is we try to reshore manufacturing.
Yes.
We don't have the workforce.
Yes. It's not just that. It's not just in manufacturing. We don't have the workforce in healthcare. We don't have the workforce in a lot of places right now. So I understand what you're saying. I'm not entirely buying it because when people lost their jobs for buggy whips and making saddles, they went on to do other things. They didn't just disappear. And the government didn't create factories for them to work. Right?
Yeah, I've got a similar policy. So we're, Britain already fried certain CEOs' brains. Now whoever leads the IRS, their head's exploding, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I've been saying is where the SBA has where the government has some very successful lending products like the SBA. What the SBA has to do next is they have to increase the capital limits, and we need basically an SBA Supermax loan. For the audience that doesn't know, when you sign an SBA product to go buy a business or expand your existing business, you sign a personal guarantee.
Yes.
So the entrepreneur has to sign their name just like a bank loan, right?
Yeah. You put everything on the line.
And so you're on the hook for performance. If it doesn't work out, you're not going to be able to use a credit card again, right? However, how many entrepreneurs do you think there are out there that if they could get a few $100 million from the federal government to increase critical supply chain, the metals, the manufacturing, the logistics, all the stuff that we've kind of offshored over the years. how many do you think would actually sign their name to get enough capital to build a proper factory?
And I love what you're saying there, right? Which is different than what Britton was saying, which is have the government build these things. I'm not into the government doing that stuff. I'm more of a libertarian type of view of that. Like, stay out of my way, make sure we're not being attacked, that kind of thing. But I think that that's where the money will go. So the people that are prepared to step up and have the expertise to step up and build those factories and build a chip manufacturing firm here in Jacksonville or wherever it may be, those things happen and those jobs come back here.
Yeah. So, Britton, in your model, do you care whether the federal government just makes the capital available or if they try to show the leadership in the construction of these facilities? Is it the same to you?
Oh,
or
no.
different?
The reason why I had said that the government would actually be building these basically zones, these parks, is because there are so many restrictions based on what you just said. There isn't an easy way for an entrepreneur to get the capital that they need to truly build a factory and then be able to create the ability to automate it with the latest in automation and robotics and so forth.
Totally.
And then to be able to have an adjoining facility for, you know, the inventory and so forth. So all I want is for either the access to the capital, like you said, or the government builds the facilities and then leases them out to an entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur is then reimbursing the government. It's on a lease fee, an annual or monthly basis. So I think we're saying the same thing.
So Britton and I served in a C-suite. So this is for Jason. Britton and I served in a C-suite together.
Yeah.
And so imagine us sitting side by side. We were peers. And he would say these things with such conviction.
Right.
And then my job as the engineer, I got to figure out how to do it. So we would play these games where he sets a bold vision and then I have to create an implementation strategy around that, right? Which is where you go from maybe the government doesn't build it because they don't actually have contract resources.
Yes.
But what they can do is they make the capital available so private companies.
You create enterprise zones, and with those enterprise zones comes capital.
So Britton, I want to let's close it out here and dream. Let's dream about what this looks like 2026 and beyond. We now have manufacturing zones. Is that right?
Correct.
And then in the manufacturing zones, one of the big problems we have today is energy. We don't have enough there's not a state in the country that has enough electricity right now.
Yes.
So do we get to have mini nuclear power plants, Britton?
Well, you wouldn't really say the first thing I'm going to go after is a mini nuclear power plant. I think that should be part of the equation. But in the beginning, you have to have traditional electrical power plants. And then you could then transition to a mini nuclear power plant, which actually does exist, but they take on average about 10 years to build. So I think that the nuclear power challenge, although I think it's a massive entrepreneurial opportunity, it's a massive moneymaker, but it's so long to build these things. And I think that it's going to be a struggle to get there for nuclear power. And I think we're going to be forced to rely on traditional energy like we do today.
All right. So we got, but we have our own power supply, right? Inside in the manufacturing park.
Correct.
Then the next problem, we just ran into this. We're building a little office here in Jacksonville Beach.
Yeah.
A 4-month permitting delay because the city had to ask the state for permission. And then the people at the state, they only meet every 2 months. And there was this whole story behind it. But permitting around here used to be simple. And now people are screaming bloody murder. It's complicated. The permitting for a factory is insane, right? You've got the EPA. You can have OSHA involved.
Right.
You could have the Department of Energy. We just introduced electricity. You got local authorities, insurance companies. It's crazy. Britton, what do you think about if the federal government has a certain time period to review permits and failure to respond within that time period means automatic approval?
Oh, I agree. I guess the reason why I also like the idea of the manufacturing zones or the parks is that the government would just simply say, we approve all permitting. We basically go through, they complete the permitting process, and then they streamline it. So you're not, as an entrepreneur, having to go through it each and every time. In that zone, everything is approved.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think in this utopia, that's great. But I'm assuming that there's actually some value taking place during the permitting process of people reviewing blueprints or whatever else it is that they
Yeah,
do.
I want the
So-
fire marshal involved.
Right. So right, and and if you're adding higher voltage or something, I probably want someone else looking at it. Right.
So here was an argument that I had. Now,
Yeah.
and Jason, you've built companies before. What I've said is, okay, if we've already convinced the entrepreneur to take this SBA Supermax loan,
Mhm.
right? We've made it, hey, $300 million to build a pharma plant.
Right.
They can do that, right? They've already signed their name. Is it also possible to get entrepreneurs to self-certify the environmental compliance? Because I totally believe in being a good steward. I don't think progress comes at expense of environment. And I threw this idea out recently. I got chirp back saying, oh, but the trailing environmental impacts, and nobody's ever going to sign up for that liability. Maybe I'm weird, but I would sign up for it.
Yeah, but something, we've had too much history
Right.
in, let's just pick New England, of people saying that everything's safe, but you have towns that can't drink the water now and all kinds of stuff. So I would be a little weary about that. And so I understand you're a good steward. It doesn't mean everybody is.
Well, I think the position of most people is that if they can get a package to the EPA, for example, or in California, you have CARB, you have this air discharge board, that absolves the liability because somebody from the government looked at the paperwork and they signed off. So however you operate from then on out, you're kind of a little bit free from liability because the government signed off on the operation. What I'm saying is a little bit different.
Mhm.
What if the entrepreneurs and the engineers were required to self-certify?
Mhm.
And that way the liability followed the person.
Okay. So Audi or Volkswagen self-certified that their cars fit the emissions rules. Yet they didn't. And they knew they didn't.
They cheated.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my concern with that. I understand it makes all the sense in the world, and for people that are doing the right thing, sometimes, and I should disclose, I should go back and say, I'm not sure if I say allegedly or not because they were fined or what happened with Audi and Volkswagen, but because I don't want to get sued. But I do think that either people make mistakes or they don't always do the right thing, and
So
we find out years later.
You like the government watching over the environmental piece.
I like someone watching over the environmental piece because it's not my thing and I don't want to do something wrong. And I don't know that everybody else, when they say, oh, you have to do this, I can cut a corner here. I don't know that I want people cutting a corner, right? I'm sure you don't think that knowing who I am, because you and I know each other, you'd be like, really, you care about the environment. So
big feelings guy. By the way.
right. So I just think that we do need people to be those stewards.
Yeah. So Britton,
Okay.
let's give you the last word. We painted this utopia where we are reshoring, we're rebuilding in mass. We've created economic zones. We've got streamlined permitting. We have guaranteed power supply. Jason and I are going to arm wrestle later over how to do the environmental permitting. What's closing argument? What does it look like to really bring this country into the future so that we establish a manufacturing dominance that lasts for the rest of our lives?
You have to be able to convince a certain number of people that they should be working in these factories. Number one, we have to have the personnel to do it. But then we also have to have the ability to say, this is the automation we're going to leverage. This is how we basically are leveraging AI the right way to help with the manufacturing. And then you also have to be able to make sure you have the right talent to say, this is how we're continually going to be innovating products so that through that innovation is how we maintain the leadership in manufacturing. Innovation is always the thing people seem to leave out of the discussion. But if you're not continually innovating, then you're not going to be manufacturing products that people are going to buy. And so it's not just one thing you do, it's really more of an ecosystem approach. But I really say, absolutely, there's plenty of smart people like you guys who can do the automation and the robotics and the manufacturing and all that. But you have to have the talent also to be able to say, this is the innovation we're going to leverage. So we innovate and create products that generate demand, and then that demand generates sales. And it's just this cycle over and over. We keep innovating, we keep generating demand, and we keep generating sales.
See, he's a revenue guy.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a big revenue person, right? Big fan. But I would, so my concern for the future, and Britton, maybe you can talk to this, is power and water. Because Iran is just saying that they've run out of water in Tehran. How do we continue to have fresh water that we can drink, whether it's desalination, and then what does that do to the oceans? It's water, and it's how do we get more power in order to power these AI platforms?
Well, let me close. So
Good.
we were going to close it out, but
Yep.
now you went down
Sorry
the
about
power
that.
road. You got the engineer and you got the predictor here. So we got to Britton and I'll tackle that one to close out with.
Yeah, please.
So here's a question. Let's go back to Google. You mentioned Google and Gemini 3. Britton, can you describe the tech stack that unlocked Gemini 3?
No, off the top of my head, no.
Okay. So my understanding is Google manufactured their own chips, right? So they've got their own computers now, and that AI is really kind of a spectrum approach. You have different types of compute for different types of AI functions.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything needs NVIDIA. Not everything can be done on your iPhone, right? So you have different layers of compute capability. One of the questions that I've had is I watched this race to build AI infrastructure, these mega AI compute centers. It's all based on current state or 2 year ago compute technology. So it's either whatever NVIDIA is selling now or what they had 2 years ago that you could have gotten access to.
Right.
I don't actually think AI is going to end up being in supercompute clusters. I personally think it's going to revert to local devices like your laptop, like your iPhone, like maybe a small AI compute cluster in an office like the one we're in. And that most AI capacity goes local. Evidence for that would be Tesla's driving their cars off the little chip inside the Tesla. Waymo's driving everything with the onboard compute. And these are very complex things, automated cars, autonomous cars. I don't think that in the long run, when the economics start to level out and people have to pay the true cost of AI, right now it's all subsidized by investment capital. I don't think it's all going to supercompute clusters. And I personally think the next wave of innovation in AI is going to be taking those models, making them 80% as good and making them run on your phone. And then it's not a power issue anymore.
So it's going to be like a blockchain for
Yeah.
AI.
That's what I'm saying. Britton, how do you feel about the energy paradigm that we think of today with AI being radically disrupted to where AI just suddenly in a few years from now takes way less power?
Oh, I absolutely agree. But the way I wrote about this several years ago was my argument was that you have over 4 billion devices today, phones and laptops and so forth. And my argument is, why can't you just simply pull all of that power from those devices and actually leverage it to be powering local energy sources for AI? And then that actually becomes your power source. Look at how many hours people are asleep that aren't using their phone, their desktop, or their laptop, all of that. And I think that's basically what they're going to do is say, we already have the energy, we just aren't using it. And we'll pull it from the devices that are out there and we'll supplement it with smaller data centers and so forth. But I absolutely think that's going to be the solution that allows us to run on the phone, leveraging AI on a phone and everything. But also it's the vehicle. A lot of people don't realize it, but you can buy certain vehicles today and you could run your house from their battery. You could power your house through the battery. So why not pull that energy from those vehicles, and that also becomes a power source for AI. And it's basically more at the local level, as you said. That to me is what's always going to happen. And that's why I laugh at these crazy ideas that we have to build $500 million data centers and possibly $1 billion for a data center for something I think should be done locally. I really think a lot of people have made tremendous mistakes on this whole AI splurge. And I think you're going to see an awful lot of people lose an awful lot of money when they realize, damn, we didn't need these big centers.
Well, you heard it from Britton. We're currently solving energy locally. That's called microgrid.
Right.
My house is a microgrid. Thanks for bringing that up, Britton. And then now we're going to get to AI compute microgrid, right? Where it's going to go back local. All right. Well, you heard it here from the futurist Britton Ladd and the consummate AI CEO, Jason Engelhardt. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.